Okay, so the gentleman that presented on the history of rail this morning sort of mentioned that you sort of need to be young to be talking about the future of transport. So I appreciate if anyone's got some hair I can borrow to make me look a bit younger. That would be fantastic. So, first slide's a bit scary, but I'll talk you through the rest. What's the problem with transport? So, currently about 1.2, 1.3 million people die on the road each year globally, and 50 million serious injuries. So there's been, over the many years that the car's been around, we've seemed to have normalised deaths on the road. So if you could imagine if those sort of numbers were happening in the rail space or the airspace, something would be done about it. I think the future is going to be addressing the number of deaths that occur. Governments can't afford to run public transport services. This is globally. There's a few instances where they're outsourcing operation and maintenance of buses and train networks, and likewise with road networks as well. We've got sporadic services in regional areas which are not really that convenient for the people who live in the regional areas. We've been speaking about having one train, and it's been really difficult to even get that one train and then the second train to Bathurst. So if you can imagine if you've got to rely on that all the time, would you be rather jumping on a car or in a car? The baby boomers are getting old. Their movement and mobility is somewhat getting limited, but the proof that you've got thousands and thousands of camper vans on country roads, going through and doing tourist activities is probably proof that they can move around a little bit. Cities are densifying, and programs to bring city people into the bush aren't really working that well. We're getting a little bit, but not as much as we want. So that means that everybody's really attracting themselves into the cities, which is making congestion a big issue. Burning fossil fuels has had its time. Younger generations don't accept the convenience over environmental impacts anymore, and you can see that with all the climate protests that are happening recently. We're also having issues with interconnectivity between modes of transport. So it's not really getting that train timetable to match up with the bus timetable, and then you've got that last mile service as well. And what we've been speaking about today with the other members is the customer experience getting from A to B is valued more than the speed of getting between A and B. And technology is the forefront of every trip. So what's being done about it? So there's significant public and private investment and wide-ranging publicity in new technologies such as drones, driverless cars and trains, and vacuum tubes, or what other people like to call it, the Hyperloop. Some of these are pipe dreams, others are becoming reality. With those three examples, though, you can see the common factor is removing the human from operating these vehicles. You're already seeing aeroplanes being able to be flying without intervention. The pilots are most of the time there just as a safety precaution, just in case they need to land the plane. We're seeing shared mobility services such as e-bikes and e-scooters be more popular around built-up environments, urban environments. Not really that practical in the rural sense, though. It'll probably take you 4 or 5 hours to do your scooter from the train station to home. And then who is to pick that up to have the return leg? What's evident in all these solutions is that we need to have connections to major hubs by rail and air, and smaller modes of transport providing the local journeys. So you've seen in Transport 2056, you've got the hub and spoke model, And you can see that the future is going to be that you pile a whole bunch of people into these hubs, get them to where they want to go, and then the last mile to get to home or business or wherever they need to be. So who's investing in solutions? You've got many government agencies globally investing in technologies and new ways of transport. Locally, Transport for New South Wales wants to lead the way in application of new technology and planning and management of future transport systems to provide the best outcome for the customer. You're seeing in the latest pipeline industry briefing that happened on Tuesday, Rod Staples was talking consistently about having customer as its focus. And it's no longer we built an asset and the customers will come. It's all about the customers all the way through the journey. And private industry can't do it alone. So you're seeing the governments are investing money in making these new technologies work. So how is AAMI Consulting meeting the challenge? So AAMI's leading an automated vehicle trial that's happening in Dubbo, New South Wales with Transport for New South Wales. I'll talk about that a little bit later. AAMI's also rolling out or have rolled out several autonomous vehicles in Europe as well. In a joint venture with VTOL, VTOL operate autonomous drones to carry out inspections in road and rail corridors, and it's generally that they're unmanned and they'll go about 100 to 120 kilometres in a day, go onto a pod, recharge, and then go the next day, download all the data as it's recharging. We're not looking at Uber. We're not looking at Uber-style drone public transport quite yet. Program rolling out electric charging facilities. We own a fleet of about 500 electric vehicles in the Madrid town centre. And so for those that haven't been to Madrid recently, they've really cut off the town centre to public access, well, the private vehicles. So you've got to get on and jump in one of these vehicles. And also robotic railway refurbishment. So it's essentially rolling a massive 3D printer down the corridor and 3D printing materials and installing those as on the fly. So all of these things really force, from AAMI's perspective, we're in the maintenance and operation space. As everyone knows, maintenance and operation probably don't get the funding that the big shiny new projects get. So small budgets really forces innovation. So what makes the Dubbo trial special? So we're performing an autonomous vehicle trial out at Dubbo. Dubbo was selected because they're very tech savvy. They've got a large population in comparison, and they're very much forward thinking, and we can see that we can put a lot of people into these cars. So currently you've got a bus service that carry on average 3 people per trip, which is a significant investment in having an operator with a driver spending about 75% on its driver and the vehicle as well. So our trial is taking an existing vehicle. You can buy the existing vehicle from Dubbo Motors or from Ford Motors or wherever, just a regular car. We've picked a ute, and that's going to be a world first autonomous ute. We've got higher operating speeds, so for those that have already taken a journey on one of the small autonomous pods, they're 20 kilometres an hour would be the average speed. In a regional setting, 20 kilometres an hour if you're taking a 20 kilometre trip doesn't really work out. So ours goes at basically the posted speed limit. It gives a realistic user experience. So what we didn't want to do was plonk a pod out in the middle of Dubbo and expect everyone to jump on it straight away and go, oh, wow, this is fabulous. We want to educate on autonomous vehicle use and getting a buy-in from the public. So we've given them a shape that they're used to seeing. One of the really minor things about this trial, but it seems to grab all the headlines, all the ministers seem to love to get up on stage or in front of a camera to spruik the kangaroo detection research. So a kangaroo is quite difficult to predict. There's been a whole lot of research into it. What we're not doing is solving the issue. There's a significant amount of kangaroos in Dubbo. We're really hoping we're not going to hit one. And we're going to be working with analysts to get an algorithm to make sure that we can predict as close as possible a kangaroo and make sure we don't have a collision with it. We're also connecting multiple transport hubs. So going back to the Transport 2056 model and strategy, we want this to be sort of a last mile, but in a regional setting, a last mile is significantly more than a last mile. So we're connecting the airport, the CBD, the rail station and Dubbo Zoo at a start. We've got also a booking and tracking system and ticketing system. So these really aren't new. Anyone who's used Uber, it's pretty close to the same thing. But what we're doing is merging some of that technology and having an on-demand with ride-sharing, with a free sort of ticketing system, which hasn't been done before in an autonomous vehicle. And it's also easily scalable to other regions. So what we don't want to do is come up with a bespoke solution and we plonk it down in Dubbo. After a year we get, slaps on the back, well done, congratulations, and then we pack it up and that's it. So we want this thing to be able to be used in Bathurst, in Grafton, wherever. Okay, onto the technology. So I'm not really a technology boffin, so hopefully people would understand what these are and hopefully don't have too many questions about the nitty-gritty of it. So our vehicle is self-contained. There's no reliance on Wi-Fi or 4G. These machines roughly process about 10 terabytes of data a day. So if you could imagine the Telstra network out in Dubbo having to process 10 terabytes of data additional to what they do now isn't really self-sustaining, especially if we wanted to roll out 2, 3, 4. So we've got it self-contained to make sure that we're not affecting the existing systems. There's a number of sensors for differing purposes. We've got GPS, LiDAR, radar, cameras and ultrasonics, and some of that will work really well with the kangaroo detection and late at night. We've also got data capture and processing and the big red button for just in case. So everyone's fear is that they're jumping into this machine, it doesn't know what it's doing, it's going out of control. Hopefully it will never do that. And we do have people on board for a customer engagement piece, but they'll also be sitting behind the wheel, and just in case something goes wrong, there'll be enough time for them to hit a red button or the machine will tell them, please take over, I don't know what to do here. So we've heard all about customer-centric solutions, so ours is no different to that. As I mentioned before, we've got a steward on board to not just make sure that the car's doing the right thing, but to get feedback from the community to say, hey, is this really where you want to be going? Do we want to change the stops? Do we want to go from A to C to D to B to A again? Or do you want a new stop? Have we engaged with the customers enough? Do you like the paint on the car? Whole range of different things. And so what we don't want to do, again, is what I mentioned before, is plonk the thing down, hope it works, and then get out of there. We want the community to be involved with this project from the very get-go. So what do we want to achieve with this? We want to develop a viable solution for regional Australia. So we've heard about, the car is king in rural New South Wales. And what we want to do is give them other options. We want to make sure that, we need to rely on the rail system, we need to rely on the air system, and we want to have it convenient for all types of people to be using this transport system. We want the customer or the consumer acceptance of automated vehicles as well. So it's a very new thing. We want people to be jumping in here confidently and to know what it's all about, rather than, oh, you're taking my job away from me, like we heard before. We want to develop the body of knowledge as well, so it's not just for us to roll out this trial and then keep all the learnings and then do something else with it. Transport for New South Wales is a partner, and we are sharing data with them and significant other partners as well. And on that, we've got 23 major stakeholders, so it's quite difficult to keep everyone happy at the same time. But what we want to do is introduce this technology to partners that may not know anything about it. So where's this technology taking us? That's probably the golden question. I don't have a flying DeLorean. I haven't been into the future and come back again, so I've just done my best guess with this. So customer user experience, I think we've heard about that enough. The customer is going to be central to all transport for the future. And it's not just going to be, again, what I said before, is just banging a piece of infrastructure in and hoping for the best. The customer wants to have a nice, smooth ride. It's got to look good. It doesn't want to, you don't want it to be bumpy, because if, the iPhone pops out of their hand, they don't want to then go and pick it up, bloody train, bumpy train. And once their iPhone dies, they've got nothing else to do, so they have to look out the window. So we need to have everything really nice for them, so they want to keep continuing to travel on the system. You can also see it with the Aerotropolis, the Western Sydney Airport. It's not just about creating an airport for aeroplanes to fly in and out. There's a whole city around it with technology parks, business parks, learning centres and the like. And you can also see it in the latest metro platforms and the experience of coming inside to the metro and back out again. The transport solutions in regional New South Wales will require building flexibility in their vehicles to utilise demand throughout the day that could unlock potential revenue streams. So we were speaking about freight a little bit earlier. It's really key for regional New South Wales to have a vehicle that can be flexible. So it might be taking people from A to B, or it might be delivering packages. It might be doing a whole range of other things. But it's got to be sustainable, so we're not putting an asset on the road or on the rail that is sitting there for maybe 12 hours a day. We need to utilise it, get the most out of it. So the future of transportation is changing. Definitely you'll see a shift from private ownership of vehicles. So I know everyone loves their car here, but that will sort of disappear in the next 20 or 30 years. You'll see a lot more reliance on public transport, and having the last mile solution to your hub will hopefully render a lot of cars not needed. So you might just have the specialty cars here and there to get you from A to B, but essentially ownership, having a car sitting in the garage for 95% of the time, will hopefully be abolished. So as I mentioned before, rail will play a significant part in this transformation. So it's not like the driverless car will take over and you'll not see any more rail ever again. It's actually going to be the backbone of this new transport future. So trains will definitely need to become faster to regional towns to ensure that people don't have that option of jumping in an alternative, more convenient transportation solution. One of the other things we do see is in the younger people coming through, driver's licences take-up is reducing. So mum and dad taxis have probably got something to blame for that, and once they've got enough money, then they're probably jumping in Uber or doing public transport. So the youth of today really aren't that interested like the elderly generation, where the car was definitely something that they needed. And lastly, there will be a significant impact to the energy sector. So as I mentioned before, the youth of today, they don't like burning the fossil fuels, so there needs to be a shift in how we're powering these transportation solutions. So hopefully I've given you something to think about, and thank you very much.